One, two. Okay, here we are with our third session of the day. The title of this section is No Barriers here, which is about inclusivity and creative spaces and access. We know that the industry we are in, the sector we're in. So what I would say at this moment in time, without me doing too much, I'll introduce the people who know much more about this section than I do. So they are Christopher Samuels and New, and I'll make sure I get everybody's name right. Always pick me up if I get your name wrong or anything along those lines. We'll take it easy like that. So can you, Christopher, then you, first of all, just introduce yourselves to the room and then we'll take it from there.
Well, I'm Christopher Samuel. I'm an artist. I make, multidisciplinary artist. I make work about identity and disability politics, mainly centered around my own lived experience. And I do other things, but yeah.
Thank you. My name is Nu. I'm an atmosphere maker. I interrogate intimacy, embodiment, and healing as pathways to liberation. I collaborate with companion materials, art workers, and cultural spaces to unearth transformative ways to experience change. I draw inspiration from natural and built environments, Black feminisms and spiritual practices. Fundamentally, my work is to reinvest in intuitive ways to experience freedom on molecular and infrastructural levels. Yeah, it's better because I don't remember where I am usually.
Okay.
So.
Well, you've obviously both been chosen for a good reason, and I'll hold up my hands at this point in terms of I'm not an expert, like everyone else. I'm here to learn, so I'm glad you guys are here who can tell us more about this subject of your own personal experience, for starters at least, of inclusivity and creative spaces. So can I start with you, Christopher? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from how you started and how you've got to where you are today for a minute?
So originally, I trained as a counsellor, therapist, but became really unwell. Stumbled into art after coming out of hospital. Spent about a year as a patient in hospital. Anyway, signed up to an art and design course. Hadn't studied art before or created anything as such. But then left school, to give you context, left school with no qualifications, no GCSEs. Went to college. Did a BTEC, went on to uni, and De Montfort University selected. But the reason I came to De Montfort was I applied to Central St Martin's, Loughborough, Nottingham, all of kind of universities. But I went, my first encounter with kind of bad practice was going for an open day, and the lecturers were giving us a talk about the cause, and then we were going to leave to walk around the studio spaces and so on. As they were coming out, they looked at me, whispered to each other, then summoned over a student. Student came over and said, "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to tell you, I'm sorry." But they said for you to come. Anyway, I applied for the degree, got in, and on the interview I said, "You might not remember me, but I came for an open day and you kind of dismissed me." Anyway, so the Montfort was the only one that was accessible for me, but from the get-go, I think I felt like I had an advantage compared to the other students, because I was thinking about how am I going to survive and practice as an artist when I graduate. So I was looking for opportunities. So I volunteered at Attenborough Art Centre, did a trainee curator thing which they created for me specifically. That kind of helped. But then, just before kind of I graduated, I was made homeless. two local authorities were fighting over whose responsibility it was to rehouse me and pay for my care. But, and also up to that point, just to give you context, I hadn't created anything relating to being disabled or the disabled experience. But around the same time, I discovered what a producer was, someone who could help me write an application to the Arts Council to get funding. So we put an application in, got the grant, but I could have made something totally different. But I decided to make work about the experience of being made homeless. That was my first kind of way in. But to go back and just be a bit quicker is, before I could even apply for the Arts Council funding, there was multiple barriers in place. How could I write an application? What support do I need in order to practice? What does that look like? Having an assistant, like when I was at uni, the scribes, they were called scribes, that support me with taking notes and so on. A lot of them left because they were saying, we're doing the work you should be doing. So I asked them, could you cut this for me or stick this here? They thought it was my job. So that was a bit of an eye-opener for me, but it made me think about how I need to practice, or what does practicing look like for me. Because I don't work in just one medium. I had to kind of move between multiple things. But then I realized I needed access to work. I needed to think about the benefits. I could only work a certain amount of hours without that affecting my benefits. Receiving funding, how does that impact me? But we can come on to that. I feel like I'm talking too much.
You've not talked too much at all. We've got a lot to learn. Yourself, New, if you want to say a little bit more about your journey, how you started and to get where you are at the moment.
Yeah, I wanted to say that sometimes I rely on lip reading, and also my facial expression are a bit delayed sometimes, so
Okay.
I might look upset,
Understood.
but I'm not upset.
Understood.
So I didn't start in the arts. I was working in wine, enjoying myself in France initially, and then I did my first time in the UK. Actually, I was born in France from Congolese, Beninese, and Guadeloupean parents. So I had a specific experience of otherness when it comes to mental health, being neurodiverse, and also being Black, and also being trans back in my home country in France. And then I came to the UK because I was studying environment and sustainable development. I think Sazizo was saying, how Black parents in the previous talk, encourage you to do like things that are real careers. So that was my way to do that. And after that, I couldn't work for anyone because I'm not meant to subject to anyone. So I started to work as an artist. It's a bit hard. I have lived in many different lives. Anyway, I came back to the UK to do a PhD because this was the only viable way for me to get money at the time whilst being pregnant. And then I stopped because I discovered the specific flavor of whiteness in the UK. So I had to stop because it was a lot of labor, a bit like what we do now, like to explain what it is to have an overt experience so that you can actually get to do the work that you really want to do. So then I was stuck in the UK because of COVID, and I happened to have a 6 years old that get me more stuck here, and maybe I should leave.
Okay, so that's initially, just to start with, that's a lot for both of you. And I know if we're talking about the general subject of accessibility, you guys can lead, but you guys are very much individual examples. I know there might be people in the room right now who've got other parts of accessibility that they want to put. So before I expand further on your individual experiences, is there anybody here who's had issues of accessibility? And it could be as simple as erase, because clearly it's an arts conference which focuses on brown people or black people, whatever it is. I'm trying to widen this out so that it connects with what these guys are doing and also connects to individual experiences. So it can be any sort of access problem. Anyone want to just flag anything up initially, at the early part of this section on accessibility issues they've had? So one at the back there. Is there still a mic so we can, or I'll take the mic down to him if necessary, it's not a problem.
Hello, my name is Edgeworth. My experience is about an understanding of where I feel you have a lot to share, but sometimes when you want to share it with everybody else, there's barriers because the people you are asking to fund the project don't understand what you're trying to do. So it's very easy to say there's funding out there, but we are limited in terms of an understanding, or whether, I don't know whether it's an understanding, maybe English is not my first language, but whether is it an understanding or an appreciation of where we come from and the culture that we want to share. Because there's things that are within our traditions, traditional dance, and you think it can have a very positive impact. But your barriers are put in front of you because people don't understand what you're trying to do.
So you're talking about culturally at the moment?
Yes.
For me to understand
Yeah, so it's sort of culture because...
So there's access culturally.
Yes.
There's gender. So sometimes it's information though, isn't it?
Yes.
We're going to get them to respond to yourselves, but I can see two hands up there, one in the middle and one at the back. If you go back in the middle, because you're right there, please. Make your points, please. Share your points, I should say.
Hi, thank you. For me, it was ethnicity because I have mixed heritage. My maternal grandmother was black, Kenyan, and my maternal grandfather was Indian. So over the years, that has kind of reared its head, being accepted in those different communities. But on a positive note, art was the saviour. So I've been able to channel that and look for my own understanding of my heritage and what that means through my artwork. So I just wanted to share that.
Could you tell us a little bit about your artwork? Because you've mentioned your heritage, but what art do you do and how's that?
Yeah, I think I've trained in ceramics and glass design. That's what I did my degree in initially. But over the years, I've experimented with textiles particularly. And that became a really important vehicle, actually, for understanding heritage, both from my Indian side and my Kenyan side. So I think, like a lot of people probably in the room, I kind of experiment with all sorts. But I think, for me, the kind of cultural understanding has come through my own personal investigations and through art. So I just wanted to share that, because I think often what is a perceived barrier and a known barrier, through your own stealth, resilience, inquiry and curiosity, you can actually tip that balance and make it work for yourself.
Thank you. I'm going to take that question in the middle, Samara, there, and then I'm going to ask you guys to fill in some of your personal experiences, some of the challenges you've had, and how you've individually approached it.
Thanks, John. I kind of want to say everything, like just everything. And I'm sure we could all reel off lists. I remember when I started out as an artist, one of the big challenges was age. Like if you were not in the 16 to 25-year-old category, there were so many opportunities that were not available for folks. But also, I think I want to kind of uplift something that Nu said, which is around parenting and how much that radically transforms your capacity to participate in industry or in opportunity. And there's like loads of things like chronic illness. I think one of the things about neurodivergence is how different and varying and invisibilized those experiences are. And I think so much about how, certainly from my perspective, how much I perform to be in spaces and how I mask, and then that isn't perceived in a way as though I have needs. So yeah, I mean, I could talk about this for England, but I'm sure we all could.
We'll take both of those. That lady there, and then to your right as well.
Hiya. For me, it's disability. So I have a visual impairment and a physical disability as well, but they're both invisible. So I've only been disabled since 2021, so it's been like fairly recent for me. So what I've kind of struggled with is like owning that disability and asking for what I need. Even though the companies that I've worked for have been brilliant and always given me what I needed, I still need to advocate for myself and be the person to know what I need and ask for it. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm coming from.
We'll do one more there before we come back to the
Hi. Mine is just learning all the time. I used to do dancing when I was younger, and dancing was a way of me expressing myself because I wasn't very confident in the classroom. I'm dyslexic, so it's a matter of dancing helped me to learn throughout my life, and that's what I really wanted to do. At the age of 14, I had to stop, and then I just had so many other different careers. But dancing was the one thing that made me learn about other cultures and things like that. So, and it helps me with my mind as well. It takes me to different music, take me to different places, and it helps me to sort of like regulate myself.
Thank you for that for the minute. So what I'm trying to do in this section, we're talking about accessibility and spaces. It's easy enough for us to identify some of the many barriers, and like I said, that can be neurodiversity as well as gender and access to places. What I'd like to do is flag up as many barriers as we can, and also approaches to trying to get past those barriers and make, because if we're going to take anything from this 40 minutes or so that's left, it's about, well, these are the barriers individuals have come across. How can we approach those? So again, yourself, if you would, Christopher, tell us a little bit more about some of the barriers you've encountered and how you've individually tried to approach those.
So I think, like I just touched on, I think in order for me to kind of work and practice, I need support of many different people. So I realized actually I have care needs for personal care. So that's one need in order for me to be able to get up, get washed, get dressed. Also, you spoke about energy and the capacity to kind of work in a space that expects you to work 10,000 hours a week, respond to emails in quick time, or be quite outgoing. And for me, I've kind of navigated that by applying for access to work, which enables me to have someone who can do admin stuff, that can conversate with different people, help me in my studio. But another big thing for me, like I touched on, and a lot of other disabled people apprehensive about, is receiving money, funding, and the implications of that. I had to figure out what benefits I'm on and what are those stipulations. How many hours can I work? And then figure out how to get the money. So I set up my own company limited company. I apply for funding, it goes into my company. Then I pay myself below minimum wage in order to be able to practice. That goalpost has shifted last year now. So if you've got more than 16,000 in your account, say it's 10,000 for materials or whatever, they class that as your capital. So they kind of moved goalposts in that sense, but I'm in the process of figuring that out. But to go back to kind of normal barriers is like some of the questions, well, some of the points you guys spoke about is, I find for me, finding allies, people that think in the way you think or have the same agenda. So I look for different organizations that champion disabled people or people of color, and they have a rich resource. They have rich resources in terms of if you want a mentor, if you want looking for kind of potential small pots of funds or places to show work. For me, that's kind of how I overcome some of those barriers. But I could go on and on, but I think I'll leave.
Thank you for that. So what I'm just taking from what you've just said is that you've made yourself at some point self-employed to try and improve the financial situation, paying yourself a wage. Let me correct me if I get any of this wrong. And then goalposts have moved to a degree that if you almost like you've become too successful because of the criteria changing, so you're getting penalized for succeeding in that respect. I mean, you also mentioned the fact that you were getting help with admin or seeking help with admin. In terms of the various different issues people have raised out here, among from their individual experiences, I know Lady Vare was talking about your workplaces have been good in terms of helping you with access to stuff. Is that a recurring problem, people? I mean, is there any, are there organizations or access to resources anyone wants to point out to people in the room to say, oh, if you've got this problem with access, I know somebody who can, or I know a website or a person. Because obviously we're trying to do solutions as well. We're trying to share experiences of what might be out there. And this is definitely not an area I know much about. So we've got the individual experiences here, but I'm wondering if about your experiences, if there's examples of good practice that seems to be what Christopher just pointed out in terms of people helping him, that anyone else could point us to as well. And if there isn't, it's not a biggie. And so I'm just thinking, oh, hand up Amara. Give her this mic, please, brother. Thank you. Cheers.
I think picking up on Christopher's point around money and how tied that type of actual resource is to a lot of our barriers. There's an organisation called the White Pube. The White Pube, they have a successful funding library on their website, and you can just go on their website and look at people who've submitted like successful Arts Council applications. And I'm saying that because some of them have specific approaches to how they've supported their access needs as part of their projects. So you can see like how they've kind of worked it out in their application, and all of them have been successful.
So that's straight away super practical, something people can look at irrespective of what way you're working. What I'm going to want to do is you tell us a bit more about your experience. And I want to flag up barriers people might want. We could maybe just share barriers people are experiencing and suggestions as to how to tackle them. So, New, if you want to tell us a little bit more about your experience of tackling barriers in this case, not just what you were facing.
Okay. It's all going really fast for me.
That's fine.
Okay, let's do, for example, I think in general, with the things I'm coming with, what I found the most successful is to create my own projects that are not only hosting and caring for not only hosting and answering my needs, but also the ones of other neurodiverse and disabled Black artists in particular. The problem with this system is that it's project-led, so it's only gonna last for so long. And within those projects, we work with therapists or spiritual care coordination. We have childcare, things that help people with children, different things that are linked to the needs, specific needs of the people we're working with. However, this is just like pocket money, really, because projects start and then end. And then it's the same situation, and sometimes it's a bit harder when you like you taste sugar, and then you go back to sour. It is a bit difficult, but the only thing we can do is to hold those those dear memories in our heart and keep on trying to create something different. I haven't myself applied for access to work because I'm for a personal reason that I'm worried about like anything administrative. So even these first steps I haven't made, you know. Also because being a foreigner, I feel like everything I do like is gonna be seen as like a reason to kick me out, which is irrational until it's not. So some of the things that can, it's hard to think about like I find it hard to think about the barriers and then solution directly. Yeah.
Well, I would say that you've touched on something that I've touched on, I think, in the first section on, I don't know if you were in the room at the time, on finances, where we talked in the first section about finances not being, it's great to have a grant, but obviously don't be just reliant on that grant or trying to plan ahead, because when it's over, it can be a cliff face. So you're saying about the highs of what, if I'm interpreting you correctly. So, but what I would ask you both, and to the room as well, is are either of you members of any sort of support groups or mentoring groups or action groups to actually, I mean, from your experience, have you raised anything in a form that can be seen anywhere else to say, right, you know what? We need a group that is actually specifically dealing with my issues or advocating for me or me. I'm saying, do you know of any groups like that? Are you members of any professional or advocacy groups? Informally or otherwise?
Yes.
Because it might be a network we don't know about. It might be an email group. It could be a WhatsApp group. It could be a Facebook or Instagram group. I don't know. I'm just trying to tease out what's out there that we don't know about yet at the moment.
For me, I think, so I look to organizations like Unlimited, Dash, Disability Online, Shape. Those are kind of hubs for disabled practitioners. Like I kind of touched on before, I think they kind of where I don't specifically look for them now, because I think I've built structure around myself that I know what my needs are, but a lot of people come to me for advice or consultation stuff where I can tell them what's worked for me and how I.
Is it because of the shortage of people with recognisable or not recognisable disabilities that you find yourself being pushed forward as an expert by? So, you know, some of the time, whether you can be the black expert just by being black and there's not enough of us and you never claim to be an expert, but just by dean of having a little bit more experience of this thing, you become quote unquote the expert, even though you're not putting yourself out there as an expert on gender stuff or so. I suppose what I'm teasing at this moment in time then, if most of us here are arts workers, this section is about access to sustainability or just access. That's access for art workers. I'm asking the room, I suppose, is there an opportunity out there for creating access to arts for non-arts workers, i.e. if someone has a disability or is neurodiverse, are there markets out there, I use the word loosely, that we could be providing better access for people, whatever their diversity might be, whether it's racial, gender, whatever it is. It's an open question. And I know some of you are creating your own projects. I'm wondering if there are projects which could better suit those communities or those individuals. I mean, could any of us in the room right now be flagging up, you know what? It might be visually impaired, it might be gender, it might be non-binary. Are these communities, individuals being provided for? Are there any opportunities for us to create some work? I can see a hand there, so.
Hi, I'm Cara. I'm a writer and performer myself, but I work a lot with children and young people trying to access the arts. In the organisation that I work with, we have a project at the moment that specifically works and engages with neurodivergent kids, so especially kids that are on the autistic spectrum. And while the project has been just snapped up, like there was a huge kind of need for it, something I've noticed is that there's not many black kids on this project, and I think that I would love if you guys have any insight or wisdom on, I guess. Obviously, I think the whole conversation around being neurodivergent in the black community is still so new. I feel like for a long time, like the discussion of autism just was not had, or they would just straight up say like you can't have it, or you know there's kind of statistical oversight in sort of black women in particular being sort of recognised as being neurodivergent. So I would love to know if there's any kind of work happening that can be supported to kind of make sure that black kids who are also neurodivergent are getting, and brown kids are getting the support that they need to engage in the opportunities that other kids are.
Could I say that question should not just be to the two panelists, but to the room? Because again, this is an area where there's, from what I can tell, not that much knowledge. So if people know of activity that's going out there for organisations or individuals that are doing work that could be helping, please feel free to throw in there. And if there is nothing coming back, I'm saying, well, there's another opportunity there, or because we know there's demand. I've got family members who are neurodiverse youngsters. It's like the next generation. I can only speak from experience, but I'm like, well, this didn't seem to be a thing before my ignorance. So I'm saying all the creativity that's in this room, I don't mean it to sound in any way, sort of shape or form opportunistic, but there is a demand there, because if we're in a room which is about arts workers, creatives and whatever, and we're asking these questions and there's a relative shortage of answers coming back, it doesn't mean there's a shortage of demand or need. And again, our two panelists here, you can only talk about your experiences as wide as your experience might be, but if you're being, once again, it's coming back to that thing, well, you're an expert, am I? I can only talk about what I'm doing, you know what I mean? But I'm saying, I mean, I know you didn't speak before and you, but it's the same thing. Here's how I'll rephrase it. Do you know of other people like yourselves, other artists who you would happily say, oh, if I can't help you with this, but ring this person or email that person? Who are some of the peers you might look up to or you recommend or you respect?
Specifically for...
Yeah, go ahead, either of you. People doing similar work to you in some way, shape or form, or with similar experiences, you could say, you know what, at least email this person. If you've got a question, contact that person because I like what they do. It doesn't even have to be someone you know. It's just somebody you know of. You don't have to know them personally is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think this happens this happens on a one-on-one basis. So if someone like comes to me with a specific need, then I can refer to people I respect, you know, and I value the work of. But like sharing a list like right now is not something.
This is very much for me to try and understand what's out there, because if there's a young person from Leicester, for specifically a 17-year-old neurodiverse, but wanting either to work in the arts or more to the point just participate, I'm trying to understand better how we make it easier for them. You know, you've got the what's the local theatre?
What?
Phoenix. I mean, Who's gone there recently? And is there any knowledge as to what they're doing? It's not to put them on the spot. It's just me to understand the participation element. How easy is it to participate? Anyone here want to? Again, we've got two people at the back. So, yeah, if you hear what they've got to say.
Hi, my name is Ashley Parish Jabang. I'm a creative neurolinguistic programming practitioner. So I work with people using art, drama, poetry to facilitate therapeutic healing and music. I was based at Derby Theatre for some time. I'm based in Derby. And there were young people's programs that I produced where the young people would come to hone their creative skills, similar to what you do. What I found working with young people who are neurodivergent and on the spectrum is the best thing that worked for me is accessing the parents. Because as you said, in our community, it's still very much a taboo and uncertain conversation. So I found that bringing in the parents initially on a one-to-one basis, inviting the parent and the child in to have a conversation with me, get to know who I am and get to know what the program offers, then opens up the parents' knowledge to ask questions and feel more comfortable. As a parent myself, I wouldn't want my child to be involved in something I don't know what it's about, even if they're neurotypical or neurodivergent. So it's very important to speak to their caregivers. If they're a child who are care experienced, it's important to speak to their support workers, speak to those people in the council who make decisions over their lives. I work with a lot of children who are care experienced and in the care system, and they don't have one specific person for a period of time in their life who are making decisions. So you have to be on the ball and know who you are speaking to for that young person and who's advocating for them in order to be able to support them. Because if we're dealing with children, we're dealing with people who are under a certain age and not allowed to make decisions and not allowed to sign papers for themselves to be involved in programs. So the first point is the adults, is the parents. So that's my input. When specifically you're speaking of Leicester, I recently was on tour with Too Funky Art. They're just across the road. They have a touring show called And Still I Rise, which I was part of last Black History Month. In addition to that, they also have a program for young artists as well to be involved in and to be nurtured in their craft. That's in Leicester. And in Birmingham, at the MAC in Birmingham, there's loads of opportunities for young people who are neurodiverse. So again, it comes down to speaking to the parents when putting out the marketing material rather than speaking to the child. The child may be interested, but if the parent says no, they're not going. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to take the next observation in the back row there, and then I want to turn it around a little bit to some of what you've said individually in the room about, again, it can be your own access to arts individually, your own barriers to your own access to you as individuals, again, whether we go back to the gender thing or the location thing or just the information thing, but right to the back.
Okay, hi, my name's Lorraine Douglas. I work at Curve Theatre, that's the local theatre in Leicester. I'm Schools and Partnership Manager. And I'm going to go to the question that you were saying about access and within any of the buildings that are here. So through the Curve Theatre, one of the things that we have, and it's online on the website, that you can look at and find all the different things that are going to support audience members, but also artists as well, in regards to access. And that can be obviously a quite wide range of diverse needs that people have, right the way from when we're thinking about people come in who may need to bring in a dog because they are giving them support for their mental health and well-being, all the way down to obviously access in the performances that are happening at the Curve as well. My role works with young people, and one of the things that I do for one of the projects is working with care experienced young people. And what we try to do, even through the weekly classes that happen there, is try and offer as best as possible a wide range of work that will appeal to those people, but also as well that it is inclusive practice, that there isn't a thing of, well, it's just about working with one particular group. Yes, we have specific projects that we might do with that, but also that the work that we're doing is inclusive, and it's making sure that the practitioners have got up-to-date knowledge and experience of working with the needs that are in that particular room.
Thank you for that. Can we talk about a little bit, including the panel here, about race? Is anybody specifically saying, it might be anecdotal, but it's very much individual. Are we finding our race, our gender, whatever? Do we think there are specific examples of where we're thinking, I would have got that if not for this thing, or if I had more information on that thing? Can the room as well as the panel expand a little bit on individual experiences of, be it your race, be it your gender? Nothing you might want to, some stuff you might not want to share, but as much as you want to share, where you think, you know what, I found this to be a barrier. I want to flag up. A lady there had her hand up, if you can get the mic. And we'll go with you, and then I'll bring the mic to yourself. You go ahead.
So I'm in residency at Birmingham Museum at the moment. Part of my residency, I've been trying to connect with disabled people of colour in Birmingham within the community. Spoken to over 200 people, and a common theme that keeps coming up is people of colour are not accessing the services that other cultures are accessing. There's a big drop off. I thought it was just me, because I thought, okay, my experience, as soon as you, and specifically also that transitional period when you're considered legally an adult, you drop out of services even more so. But within the black community, tend to look after our people, and there's taboo. It's a big taboo around disability or kind of relationship to disability. I think that's a big impact on people not trusting or not going forward to seek different potential opportunities. My nephew, who I look after, I proactively, militantly saw how different opportunities for him to engage. So you say that's a lot. There's these services that's available, yes, but non-minority, so-called communities often aren't accessing them because they don't know that. And more specifically, the black community. Before you say your point, if they want to expand that, but again, I'm learning this, I don't know this, I'm just flagging these things up if it was. So we'll come to yourself, so we'll go easy.
Okay, so I'm a comedian, and I've been doing this for quite a few years. Stand-up comedy's generally male-dominated, so it's harder for women anyway, and if you're a woman of colour, that's another level again where you don't get booked. So this example happened last year, where about 3 years ago I headlined for a new gig that had opened in a village in sort of Rutland area. It went well, the venue was happy, the audience were happy, the promoter was happy, and he never booked me to headline his gigs ever again. I asked another comedian, and he said that the general consensus was the people in the area don't want to see a brown woman on their posters to headline, and so I stopped applying. But that's just in 2024. I can give you several examples of like that are quite recent. So yeah, so there are still barriers around gender, around race. And again, last year, I was part of a comedians lineup, which is specifically about disabled comedians. So my friend who runs that had booked out a well-known venue, booked me on the bill, and I was the only person of colour and the only woman of colour. But the guy who owns the venue, who had nothing to do with the night, stopped me just before I was going on stage and very, I think very antagonistically, aggressively asked me what my disability was, how come I was there, why am I doing 20 minutes. The other disabled comedians, apart from the person who organised it, they were all invisible disabilities, and none of them were of colour, and none of them got questioned. And I've been doing this for over 10 years, so I've had lots of instances like those, which, looking back, I could have easily packed up. I don't know why I keep doing it. I think probably to make a point. Yeah.
So we come from the same field, stand-up obviously, and knows where I come from. And you're saying that's 2024. It sounds like it might as well be 1974 in terms of this being a sharing space, and it's not just about comedy. We can talk, that is an access thing. We're still saying, you know what, it's just blatant as. You know, I mean, we're in a room among peers, irrespective of whatever our backgrounds are. We're united by our presence here, so feel free to share that one. So I'm taking your point about it, you know, straightforward racism, it would seem there. I saw two hands, if I remember right. One there, go ahead.
I was just going back to the point about the black young people accessing opportunities. And what I found working with the program I was doing was that a lot of parents, black parents, they are of a different socioeconomic part of society where they have either multiple jobs and they can't bring the young person to the event, so they just exit out. They don't look at it. So what we did was we set up a service where in the funding, there was a funding pot for taxis to be able to pick the young person up and bring them to the event. So we also provided food after school and stuff like that, because again, these are things that the parents just don't have time. You know, and a lot of the parents as well, they still, I know this is 2025, they still see art as not a career. And that's the reality. They still see it as, you waste time, what you do that for, you know? And whereas it is a career, it should be respected as such, and it can be harnessed in a way to be successful. So that's why that's my experience of the answer to your question.
One of mine was just from 2023 in that I was putting on comedian Gina Yashere in Birmingham. And as many years I've been doing this job, I didn't even notice that if you're a person with a disability buying a ticket, so you can have a carer, a free ticket. But I'm thinking, how the heck did I not know that? As simple as so, it's already out there as a ski. You know what I mean? So if you're buying a ticket for a show, you can get the ticket for the next person to help you along for access. This is apparently quite wide, but I didn't know that. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. And it was fine in the situation. It's just that it was flagged to me to say, oh, this person's bought a ticket and they want the free ticket for their carer. And someone said, didn't you know that? Or companion, whatever the phrase is. So some of the time it's just information, and as I said, in that example, it was no problem. Of course, the show was going to sell out anyway because it's Gina, so it's not a problem. But even if it wasn't going to sell out, the point was, this is the law. Me as an experienced worker like yourselves, I didn't even learn of that until that specific example came up. So some of the time, it's information, it's individual knowledge, or flagging up the fact, like Sister just said there, you know what, there are taxis that might be able to be provided by a venue, or sometimes the solutions are out there anyway, but we don't know about them. So some of the time, forums like this or the online stuff, you two will know a lot more than I'm ever going to know already about some of the stuff that's out there. Does anything occur to you at this moment in time that people might not know about that are solutions for access? I mean, it doesn't have to be straight away, you know, but even that one about the friend who could get a free ticket because the venues are funded to to make that happen?
Yeah, I think for me, rule of thumb is whatever either I'm going to watch something or I'm involved in something. My first question is, what access requirements do you have, and can I access this? You know, like you said, carers coming in for free or support. That's standard protocol in my world. But if you don't know, then how would you know? But yeah, I can't think of. I think a lot of things that provisions that were in place before have been cut because of funding. So that's the most obvious.
I wanted to say, for example, us being here like that, it's not been very accessible because, for example, for me with autism, I don't engage in a large group environment. So to me, from my understanding, we were going to have a conversation here for 45 minutes and then engage with a group. But because we engage with a group constantly and it's very dynamic, then it means that I can't participate. So I think it's based to, it's like there are some basic stuff that we can return to. First, like we agree to do things in a certain way, so it has to be in a certain way, especially when you engage with neurodiverse people, because some of us, we really like quite rigid in like how, you know, the structure is gonna be, and this is the only way we say yes or no. Then also the topic of conversation is really wide. And we can only come with our personal experiences. And I think it would have been better if we would have rifted from our experiences, because we can't answer to other people's experiences when we're already trying to be open and vulnerable and share about ourselves. And I would have liked to talk way more about, you know, transness. Yeah, I think, but this is like, you know, is what the extent of what I will say in this context, because I'm saying that. Did you understand what? Yeah. I'm saying that respecting structure is really important for some of us. If we don't, then it creates like the walls go back up, because you're so used as a person that is differently abled. You're so used to having to like shape shift at all time to access basic things. When you are invited to do something, you are told something, but then something else is happening. So you go back to your default that is like withdrawing and not participating. So yeah, that's all what I wanted to say. And I think in general, when it comes to disability and neurodiversity within a conversation within Black community, let's just like slow things down. We need to like slow things down, because we're not used to talk about those things amongst ourselves. And some of us, the ones who haven't had a voice in it, they're just still looking for their words, you know, and it takes time and trust. And we can't build trust like in like, oh, this question, let's talk about, and then you say the gender thing, and you know, it's just not possible to build intimacy, but is required to really talk about the thing first, and then to move to solution. If it is done in a productivist manner, like it has been done today. We were talking just before, Christopher, but you know, like one of our barriers is like the barrier that most of the people experience living in a capitalist system. You need to produce, and this is how it has felt for me today. Like, oh, I need to, like, when no, maybe we can just like breathe together and like take it slow.
So is it that you're feeling you have to fit in to a certain shape rather than you're the person creating the shape? Does that make sense, my question?
It's not about me creating the shape, it's about, you know, organizers have created a shape that I was happy to play with, and then this shape is not happening anymore, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I think it's a shame as well, because Christopher is such a beautiful soul, and we have so much to learn from them. And, you know,
like we can't all talk at all time, you know.
So that, okay, I'll borrow that mic. So that thing where I say that some of the time, let me borrow that. Thank you. So that thing where I say some of the time we end up as quote unquote experts, even though we don't want to be. It's a hard one to deal with because you're not putting yourself up there as an expert, but because of a shortage of people with your experience, my experience, sometimes it's like we have to become that expert anyway, because if we don't speak, it's not going to be understood, the individual experience that you bring to the table, I bring to the table. Is it asking too much to say, you know what, I know you don't want to be an expert, but you know what, we can't find anyone else. Would you be an expert for a short time? It's a hard question, I know, but...
I think for me, I've first of all, I didn't want to lead or be an expert. I think I found myself in a position where I need to speak. And if I don't speak for myself or the people that you never see in society, who's going to speak for them? So that's kind of my standpoint.
That thing of having a voice and having to use it because no one's going to speak for you. I don't know if we're doing, first of all, doing the subject justice, because it seems to me it's so wide, as News has pointed out, that access can come in so many ways, shapes and sizes. It's almost like you need separate sections of the access in this way, access in that way. And feel free again to jump in and let me know. Is it too wide a subject for one section? The blank stares makes me think that maybe it is, because there are so many potential barriers to participation. I mean, I know the time is actually up, but what I would say is it's a big lesson learned that I'd say to the both of you, first of all. Thank you very much for your participation, and please show some appreciation for Christopher and Nui. And if it's not, I know we've got another break now until the next section. If they're up for it as individuals, you know, or in fact, is it easier for you guys to even talk online? I'm saying if someone had a question for you by email, is that something you're happy to take? I'm asking the question rather than. Yeah. So feel free through Opal Arts to contact these guys if you think, you know what, there's more I want to hear about their individual experiences. There's more ways I think we can be steered. Just contact Tara and anyone at Opal Arts to pass on email information, because at least the conversation can continue. And once again, thank you for your time. Lunchtime, people.